Hello everyone, welcome to another GMATclub live session. I hope everyone is doing well. Hello. A little tired. Hi everyone, welcome. As y'all can see, today's topic of discussion is short-term and long-term MBA goals. So keep your questions ready. I do not like when live sessions are not interactive, so keep those questions coming. It can be about anything, honestly. But yeah, send us your questions. We're also waiting for ISB to join the live session today. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, thumbs down, the usual. My day's going great. I hope your day's going great too. Hello. Tanishq Sharma saying short term going to INSEAD for an MIM and nailing the GMAT. That's awesome. Okay. Some of you guys are giving me a thumbs up, which is good. Awesome. Okay. Hi, Shruti.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you? Good evening.
I'm doing great. It's evening for the both of us, but I'm sure some people are waking up just to see this live session here. So before we begin, first, Shruti, please do introduce yourself to our live audience.
Yeah, so we are ISB and we are a boutique consulting firm. So basically, we are in the business of grooming champions. What we do, in other words, is MBA admission consultants, focusing a lot on one-year MBA programs across the world, a lot on India and Europe, as well as the regular MBA programs in Canada. So that is what we do, and we have applicants ranging from 3 years to around 15 years of experience going across the programs throughout the countries that I've mentioned.
I see. That's awesome. So, of course, the topic of today's discussion was short-term and long-term MBA goals. How important is this question exactly while filling up your application?
So this is a very important question, and it really shows up by the time you have your interview. So that is a place, where your short-term and long-term goals are really questioned and discussed about. So the interview is the real place where you get down to your goals. Now, having said that, why is it important is because the school is very much interested in knowing where you are headed. So apart from what your goals are, they are also very interested in why you chose a certain set of goals. Right? What is the usual way that we get into, selecting the MBA or maybe the post-MBA goals in the MBA application are maybe just research, what the school wants, and we talk to a lot of people. We see, okay, the school likes to hear this, and we just put it in the application without giving any forethought to it. Or we use the industry buzzwords, product management, we have supply chain, we have consulting. These are all the buzzwords which are going around, and we just, push it into our application somehow. Or another way is study the career reports, look at which is the biggest part of the pie chart and fit into that and push in your application. Now, why this short-term and long-term goals is important is that when you get to the interview, your interview would be interested in knowing why you chose a certain school. And where it might hurt you is that if you use the, what everybody else is using, how does it differentiate you? It doesn't really, differentiate you in that way. Now, another thing is if you use the industry buzzwords, you're already putting yourself in a pool of overrepresented applicants because that is what everybody else is doing. Now, is that the best thing to do? This is where the question comes that choose your short-term and long-term questions very, very judiciously.
But is the interview the only place where you have to really think about the answers for this particular question, or you have to also kind of prepare these answers for your essays as well?
You have to prepare these answers for the essays as well, but it rarely comes right in the face when you are in the interview. So,
Mm-hmm.
so one way is to, go the usual way and what everybody else is doing, you just put it and you go ahead and say that, okay, product management is what ISB does. So let me put product management. Now, where am I coming from? Is product management something where I'm headed to? Is it actually where I fit in? So these are things which a reality check beforehand is very important. We do a lot of MBA applications for the Indian schools, the one-year programs where we have ISB and IIM AMPBA, the PGPX and IIMB and IIMC. Now these programs, of course, a lot of hiring is in the IT sector, the IT consulting sector, or the consulting sector for, right? Now, if I just put in consulting, then I'm just pitching myself against a huge lot of people who have just put in consulting, and then everybody else is questioning me that, okay, everybody else means the four set of readers who are going to go through your application, and then the interviewer who are going to ask you that, okay, now where are you headed, really? So if consulting is the way, then I need to prove it with my actions as well. My resume needs to speak in that way. So that is where this whole confusion comes up. That okay, I thought that ISB was a consulting school, and I put in consulting. Now why am I rejected? So
Correct.
it all boils up to the interview at the end. But yes, it does crop up in the beginning as well.
What if, for example, let's say in my resume I've done, particular things, something related to, let's say, marketing, but the direction I want to go for later is something else. So should you be that honest during your interview, or should you think a little strategically when you answer your short-term goals?
Right. So the interview is a very, it's a very high-strung environment. And more than the interviewers, the interviewee himself is, very conscious of that environment. So if you are able to fake it during that interview, the MBA interview, you are a genius. You are a superstar. In fact, you are in the wrong industry. You need to be in the acting business. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's hard to fake it in the MBA interview, and you will, somehow fumble. You somehow be okay. I thought this was it, and is it the right way at all? So that reality check happening in the interview, it is better that I do it beforehand. And if it is a different line, so we have had people, coming from the infrastructure business and going to the IT consulting as well. A lot of such cases, and that too with around 10 or 11 years of experience. But then we prepared for it. We prepared even during this, the 6 months of the application process. The resume spoke for itself to some extent, and the interview and the application, everything connected well. So it has to be a gelled in affair. Everything has to sink in, and then taking a totally new route is totally not. It's not like it cannot be done. It has been done, and a lot of people have matured results even after the placement process.
Correct. Someone here commented, "Fake it till you make it." I'm not sure if people should go with that.
I am not so. I'm not too sure if you should go with that. I would not suggest.
Oh,
But if
someone
you
here.
do, then yeah, if you do, then it's recommended. So it's commendable.
Someone here asked, regarding long-term goals, how far ahead do schools expect you to think? What's an ideal timeline?
For the long-term goals, I think around 7 to 10 years is what we look at. And if you look at the short-term goals, it would be around 3 to 5 years, depending on what work experience you come from. So if somebody, within the 3 to 6 years of work experience range, a short-term would be around 3 years or maybe around 5 years as well. But somebody with around 10 years or 8 years of experience, the short-term would be really short. That would be around, just post-MBA to 3 years. So that's how comparative it is.
Correct. Okay. One more question here. In terms of entrepreneurship, what if my long-term plan is to have an establishment which is not really in the same industry as of the employer? How would you convince that you are the right fit?
Okay. To convince that you are the right fit and you are changing your industries, you have to be able to show that you have some transferable skills that can go beyond the industry. So you have to be able to identify those transferable skills. And then again, if you're looking at entrepreneurship, the main skills are, how you look at the business venture, how resilient you are, how maybe, in terms of knowing the business model, how well you have worked in that business model. So probably those things, and to be able to, identify those transferable skills and show that yes, they relate and they would be applicable to the new industry. I think that should be more like it.
Correct. We've got one more question here. How can a person from finance background currently working in financial reporting profile can break into venture capital or private equity?
Okay. So to go to private equity or, to transition to venture capital, you need to first be able to actually theoretically prove the career path. So that means you need to have the right credentials on your resume. And then you need to have, then again, you need to prove that, or you need to be sure that the school that you're applying to is actually, in that niche. So you can't apply to a school which is more into consulting and then expect a venture capital or, a different path from a finance field. So when it comes to finance roles, you need to be very sure that your resume speaks for those roles very specifically, and then probably that shift is possible.
Correct. Okay. One more question. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what's written here. So, ma'am, I have total 8 years of experience. How can I make up my how can I think make up my career? I think that's what he is it too late to go for GMAT?
It is not at all too late to go for GMAT. We have people with 16 years of experience, 11 years of experience going ahead with the GMAT and scoring very well at the GMAT. It is just that you need to be focused, you need to set your timelines, and you need to be, so now at 8 years of experience, you still have a lot of options. By the time your experience, it increases, the options will become limited. So choose your the location where you want to do an MBA, and be very focused on the GMAT prep first. Get done with the GMAT and then get started with the rest of the application process according to the schools or the location that you have in mind. I don't know anything about your background, so I am not able to suggest anything more than this right now.
Also, guys, if you want to get into more detail after this live session, feel free to DM ISB on their Instagram page or reach out to Shruti. I think we will mention the email address somewhere after this. But yeah, that's just as a heads up. So regarding short-term MBA goals, let's talk a little bit about how do you exactly, what are the steps that you have to think of? Okay, if I have to mention my short-term goals, these are some of the things that I should mention or should not mention.
So when you're mentioning your short-term goals, you need to be able to clearly identify the transferable skills that you have up till now. So now we can break this up into two parts. One is for the people who have work experience from 3 to 4 years, or maybe 2 to 4 years of work experience, and another would be around 4 to 6 or 8 years of experience, or maybe beyond that. So if I look at the first set, then I need to first be able to very clearly identify what I have done till now. What happens is, when I have a lesser work experience, it is very difficult for me to, show a certain kind of a domain expertise. So these are things that I need to enumerate, and then identify again the transferable skills, then the goals going forward, and mention the gaps. You need to be very clear with what gaps exactly you have, so that it relates to an MBA program exactly. So when you're choosing your goals, you need to be sure that these goals cannot be fulfilled without an MBA. Going in the normal course of my career, I will not get an opportunity to get to this particular role without an MBA education, a degree, maybe if you call it a brand or a stamp, or maybe just the credentials, or maybe the education part or the curriculum or the knowledge part of it. So your goals should not be something that will just come in line, spend 1 or 2 more years on the job and you will get it. So first check that on your short-term goals. Second, be very realistic that, okay, now I'm at 3 years or 4 years of experience and I don't want to become the CEO, right? I don't want to become the product head. So be very realistic in your goals. And at the same time, you need to slightly experiment. You need to go beyond the normal. You need to be ambitious, but again, be able to relate to it so it's a very thin line. It's a very gray area which needs to be traversed over there.
So, but you said you have to be really realistic with your short-term goals. Is it the same for your long-term, or this is the place where you can really imagine yourself being somewhere that you have never thought of?
Long term is totally open. You can be anywhere in the long term, and we are not very so as an adcom, I'm not very focused on where you are in the long term unless it is something very interesting. I would like, so for example, I have a short term goal of joining at some position in a corporate position, and I have a long term goal of being an entrepreneur and this. So entrepreneur in a certain sector which is upcoming right now, and in the future, it's going to grow. We all know that. So these sectors are being followed by everybody. Now you have to be very. So if you are writing entrepreneurship for your long-term goals, be very sure that you have at least maybe a 70% surety on the business plan that you are planning to build, because that is going to catch my attention. As an interviewer, as an adcom, I'm really going to be interested, okay, what is it that is your vision? So that vision part should be clear, but not very specific that we can do with.
What if, let's say, I'm sure maybe there might have been situations where someone does not really know what they're going to do after they're done with their MBA. How do they sort of tackle that question?
Okay, so if you don't know what you want to do post an MBA, probably, just run through a checklist. First, look at where you're coming from and what is the natural course of progression that you will have in the current situation, or maybe the current job that you are in. And then go at least 1.5 times higher than that. Go at least 1.5 times or maybe twice beyond that particular natural progression that you have, and more towards the team management, more towards managing people in terms of getting higher responsibilities, or having more of client engagement. So go towards the areas. So I would not expect somebody coming from a software industry and then asking to become a project manager. So project management is something that will naturally come to you. Now, if you're looking at program management is slightly different. Program management is where I look at the business aspect of it. So if I look at, just build my vision according to that. So that is probably a good benchmark to set your short-term goals if you have no clue where you're headed off to.
Right. Wow, we're getting like a bunch of questions here in between. Okay, I'll just like start picking them one by one. Okay. So I have 2 years gap in my experience. Will that be a problem while applying to schools?
It should not be a problem unless you are, if you are able to explain it well, and if there's a genuine reason for that. A gap is not a problem. We have had people coming up with 2.5 years of a gap as well because of something that was so genuine that could not be avoided. So I think you need to research on what exactly, what happened and why you had to take that gap, and put it across properly in the right place in the application as well.
Another question here. What kind of profile should a fresher have coming right out of college with a GPA and a GMAT score? How can they stand out in the application pool?
Okay, so I'm assuming that you are looking at, since you are fresher, you are looking at the deferred MBA programs. And if the deferred MBA programs is what you are considering, then the profile should be, at least it should map out to your career trajectory from 2 years to 3 years hence. And you should be able to demonstrate that you are on the right track. So some career path, some career path which uh, what do you say, which justifies the MBA. So I think that should be enough for you for now.
Also, you did mention like regarding deferred MBA program. For those of the people who do not know what that is, could you mention it once?
Yeah. So deferred MBA is it is a way of entering into the regular MBA program. So the MBA program doesn't change, but you join the class once you have a designated work experience. So, for example, the ISB, the Indian School of Business, has a Young Leaders Program, that is the IMC. So that is nothing but another mode of entry to the regular PGP program, but you join after 24 months of experience. Similarly, Wharton and most of the leading schools in the world, they have a deferred MBA program where they give a gap of around 3 to 5 years. So
Correct.
it depends on the school. You get some work experience and then you join the regular class.
Question here. 34 years old, 5 to 6 years work experience. What do you think about 1 year or 2 year MBA program? Does it fit in my condition?
Are you looking at the Indian programs or the international programs?
That is something
So
that
it will
I guess
totally depend. Yeah, it will totally depend on the location, though I'll address it with respect to both the locations. If in India, 5 to 6 years of work experience, you've probably outgrown the 2 year MBA program. So you should look at a 1 year MBA program. If you're looking at the US or Canada, 5 to 6 years of experience is more or less the average. You can look at the you can look at the 2 year MBA program in the US or in Canada.
Question here. Everyone does an MBA for higher monetary reward. Can this be mentioned as a motivation to do an MBA? Good. That's actually true.
A higher monetary reward is actually it is understood. We don't want to hear it from you again in the application. So
True.
we probably want to see how you want that higher monetary reward. So that is something that you need to address in the application. The rest of the things are totally understood.
Oh, also, I think there's some voice issue. Do you mind taking off the headphones once and putting it back
I'll
in?
do that. Yeah, just give me a minute. Is it better now?
Wait, can you
Am I
say
audible?
something? Yeah, you're perfectly audible for me. I hope everyone can hear you well. If everyone can hear you, please put a thumbs up somewhere so we have an idea.
So I don't think there's an echo now. I was hearing myself.
Before? Okay, it's better. Someone has mentioned it's better. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, let me just bring up some of the questions here. So could you maybe repeat what was mentioned before? I think people could not really hear what you said in terms of the monetary background.
Yeah. So in terms of the monetary benefits or the monetary rewards that you will get from an MBA, that is probably an understood that even the AdCom, the school, interviews, everybody understands. So the point here that you want to put across in the application, how do you want to get that? So the how is more important than the end result. That's probably understood.
Yeah, because everyone wants to do an MBA for the money. I mean, I'm sure that's not really the case, but yeah, mostly. Okay, one more.
That's actually the case.
One more question here. How do AdComs rate failed entrepreneurs? Are they looked at positively, or would I be better off not mentioning my failed gig in the resume?
Okay. So, see, failing is not a crime. You can fail, but what the AdCom is more interested in is what you have learned. How will you not fail the next time?
Shruti, sorry, I think there's some issue with the voice again. Yeah, I'm getting the comments here. Yeah, maybe take off the headphones. It's fine for me completely. It's usually the audience that has the problem sometimes. Guys, can you hear what Shruti saying?
So I'll just try to explain, the field entrepreneur's question. Just please help me if the voice is clear. So what I wanted to say here was that failure is not a crime. What we need to be very clear about is, that you're able to communicate what you learn.
Sorry, I lost you, Shruti, there for a second. Something happened with the net.
Is the voice clear now?
Yeah, I lost you. I lost your video actually for a good 10 seconds. Could you please put the headphones back in? I think with the headphones. This is so normal, by the way. Like I literally say every time, it is not an Instagram live session. Yeah, I say this all the time, but it's not an Instagram live session without technical difficulties. So it's completely cool.
Okay, I put off every device on the internet now, so all my bandwidth is dedicated to this session.
Goodness. I can hear you completely fine though. Let's just maybe wait for 10 seconds and get a response from the audience.
We'll do that.
Okay, they gave us a thumbs up, so I think it's completely cool. Yeah.
Right. So do I go back to the entrepreneur, the failed entrepreneur question itself?
Yes.
So, see, as a failed entrepreneur, I don't think, there's any issue. You should definitely mention it in your resume, but make sure that it, percolates to the rest of the parts of your application really well. So it's again a very gray area. You need to be very careful about what you're communicating and how. So we don't want it to be a sob story. We don't want it to be an explanation as well. So your essays, your explanations, your resume must all communicate the value that you gained from that experience. If that is done well, I don't see any problem in putting that across in your application.
Got a question here. Can you please suggest on how to frame a long-term goal if the short-term goal is sustainability? The question is more on how to project something which is dynamic in the long run.
Okay, so if your short-term goal is sustainability, I will here assume that you are probably referring to sustainability with reference to the clean energy sector or maybe the finance sector. So this is where the sustainability roles are growing. And if you're looking at a long-term goal with respect to the clean energy or in a clean energy sector, I would look at a CEO role or a CXO role in any form that percolates to the top management decision making. And for a finance sector, it should probably be the CFO role. If you're looking at purely, an organization-based role, if you're looking at an entrepreneurial role, then the options are unlimited. You can have your own consulting company. You can have your own, practice where you look at solutions which are towards, enabling organizations to achieve these goals. So there are so many options for that.
Correct. Okay, I'm just gonna pick up one more question here because there are plenty. 1 second. Okay, it is referred. It's coming back to that same deferred MBA program. So, is there a limit to the age for applying for the deferred entry program?
So for a deferred entry program, you can apply if you are in the pre-final or the final year of your undergraduate or the post-graduation study, provided you do not have any work experience between your undergraduate or your postgraduate study. So with a zero work experience, you can apply in the pre-final or the final year. So that is how you apply to a deferred entry.
Last question here. Please advise how to frame a long-term goal if short-term goal is consulting. Serving in C-suite in the long term, will it be too vanilla?
Right. So now, if you're looking at what where you go from consulting, you probably go, of course, to the C-suite tools, or maybe entrepreneurship is a very good way of looking at a long-term option, provided you have the clarity of where you want to build that venture, what is that venture about. You have some clarity, at least an 80% clarity of the business plan that you want to build up. Just don't write entrepreneurship as it comes.
Awesome. Okay, we are getting still many questions, which is awesome. But for those of y'all who did not have your questions answered, feel free to DM GoalisB on their Instagram page or email Shruti. I will mention it in the description. But time is up, of course, Shruti. Any last minute tips or advice that you have for our Instagram audience here?
So feel free to be honest in your applications. We have a lot of hearsay about, this is what the school wants to hear, that is what has worked for X, for Y, but is that what will work for you? So probably, need to go deeper into that. And at some point in time, you need to trust yourself for the decisions you take. So don't worry. It is for the school to choose you and for you to choose the school as well. So have a very fair clarity of your ambitions, and don't choose any school just for the sake of it. You should be very sure that yes, you are going to achieve your goals out of that. So a very good clarity on your goals is very important as well.
Someone asked a follow-up question, so I'll just bring that up quickly and then we're done. Someone said, follow-up question, if entrepreneurship is not on the cards, what can be a compelling long-term goal post-consulting?
If entrepreneurship is not on the cards, then see, a C-suite role is basically where you go to, because consulting, it prepares you for a lot of functions. So you can pick a function where you have excelled and pick up that role. Or maybe you can, again, that is again entrepreneurship. If I say that you can start a boutique consulting firm of your own, or maybe just go and join a non-profit and, share your skills over there.
Awesome. Someone said, could you please tag Shruti ma'am's username somewhere? Shruti ma'am, are you on Instagram or should I just tag GoalisB?
No, you can tag GoalisB, so that is where I'm available.
Definitely. All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much once again, Shruti, for joining the live session. This has been a really interactive one, so it's been awesome. Thank you so much and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. If you have any other queries, please DM.
Definitely. Bye-bye.